Hey guys, today I'm going to be reviewing Season 3 of Vikings Valhalla. So, before I head into my thoughts and feelings on Season 3 of Vikings Valhalla, which aired on Netflix, I am probably, since this is Season 3 of this particular show, and it's the final season, I am probably definitely going to be getting into spoiler territory of some sort. Once again, a lot of this is kind of based on history, so I don't consider history to be a spoiler anyway. But yeah, that being said, if you don't want to know like the outcome of certain things, if you're not caught up, you might want to stay clear. Okay, so Vikings Valhalla Season 3. Yeah, guys, I have some very complicated feelings for this final season. And I'm very interested, other fans of this show, I'm very curious your opinions, if you enjoyed the season, if you were disappointed with the season. Let me put it this way, I was definitely really frustrated and disappointed and saddened with this final season. I wasn't like angry with it, you know, I was never to that point like I was angry with it. You should never be angry with a show. Let's put it that way. You should a TV show or a movie should never put you in a place of anger. That's a little ridiculous. I don't know what to say. But yeah, the show certainly never put me to any headspace of being angry with it. I was just really upset with it and disappointed because I was very much highly looking forward to this final season. And yeah, the trailers for it look so epic and so great and so awesome and so badass. And I don't know what the hell happened with this final season, you guys. Oh my god, let's get into it then. So what is happening in this final season of Vikings Valhalla? We skip ahead like 7 years, you guys, which I didn't have a problem with that. You know, I certainly did not have a problem with the time jump. The time jump worked. It was fine. And all of our characters are just all over the freaking place at this point. Leif and Harold are together for a couple episodes. They're in Syracuse initially, I believe is what it was. They're in Syracuse for a couple episodes, and then they kind of move back over to Constantinople, where they depart from one another. And so Leif goes off on his own journey, and Harold goes off on his own journey, and Freydis, in the meantime, she's still in Jomsburg. But yeah, all hell breaks out there, that then she has to go off and reunite with her father, Eric the Red. Like I said, I'm getting into the spoilers here. And then in the meantime, King Canute and Emma and Godwin, there's a lot of power plays and power dynamics going on there. And England, I love all the stuff with them and the Pope. So yeah, all of our various different characters, for the most part, are separated. And, you know, part of what I loved about the very first season of this show was all these characters kind of meshing together in interesting ways at some point in that first season, and I just don't like all the characters separated. You know, I think the big huge mistake of this particular season was definitely separating like Leif and Harold specifically. I understood why they separated the two of them, because Harold needed to be on his own and he needed his own personal growth and development away from Leif, you know. They both did, but at the same time I didn't like that they were separated like that in the narrative. So as I already said, I was very hugely disappointed and frustrated with this final season. There were definitely some really good elements in there, but for the most part I left this season feeling that it was just very lackluster. And that's just it. It's a final season, and it didn't feel really thrilling or exciting to me, which is an absolute shame considering how good the first two seasons were. And yeah, here in my notes I wrote down that this final season, it just felt too rushed, and it felt like there wasn't enough happening. Like they didn't know what to even do with these characters. Seriously, that's what it felt like to me. They didn't even know what to do with these characters. And I felt like there was a severe lack of urgency and momentum to the season, which kind of lent it feeling so very lackluster and slow and nothing really going on. I just feel like nobody felt any sense of urgency or momentum at all. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of really didn't care about any of the plots going on other than, weirdly enough, I really liked everything going on with like Canute and Emma, and then like what Godwin was kind of getting up to off to the side, you know. I left this season my favorite characters being Canute and Emma and Godwin, and that's kind of almost a shame, because I honestly just did not particularly care that much for Harold, Leif, or Freydis this season. I had a lot of huge problems with their individual plots. But yeah, everything going on in England, that's like the stuff I love. I love the power plays and the power dynamics, and the up and down nature of what's going on in England, and you know what Emma's up to, what Canute is up to, what Godwin is up to off to the side. You know, I love all of that. I love the political intrigue and them all just kind of sitting around talking about stuff and trying to make their own little individual moves. You know, I found all of that in England so much more far compelling and interesting. Yeah, just everything else. Seriously, what was wrong with the Leif and Harold and Freydis plots this season? Jesus Christ. So, like I said, Leif and Harold do initially, we open the season, and they are initially in Syracuse, briefly, and we do get that really great siege of Syracuse, and the season it started off very promising with that siege, with them building like that tunnel under there, and everybody trying to kind of, you know, outwit and outmaneuver each other, and then yeah, like Harold having to fight like the king of that place, you know, and besting him in a single combat. So it's like all of that started off very promising, and I enjoyed it. But then, like I said, where it kind of started going downhill is where they separated Leif and Harold. Again, I understand from a character perspective why they needed to separate Harold and Leif, because they have spent this entire time with each other, and they needed to get away from each other and start developing their own individual characters and what their futures are going to be. It's like, I get that, but I don't think it really entirely worked for me. Yeah, like Harold, he's off in Constantinople for the remainder of the season, and he has this whole back and forth relationship with Queen Zoe, and that ends up turning into a big whole ass mess. And then he's accused of like of murder and rape and all sorts of things, and trying to take Constantinople for himself. You know, he's accused of all sorts of things, and that just all oh my god, it escalated so very quickly, and it was a little wild and insane to me. At least it was entertaining, you know, even though it kind of just went all over the place, it was still very entertaining with what was going on with Harold. But boy, oh boy, Leif, you guys, Leif was so dull and boring this season, and he should be one of the more fascinating, interesting characters, because after what happens in Syracuse, because, you know, he's been experimenting with certain things, and he's a guy who likes knowledge, and he likes learning and discovery. That's the very essence and nature of his character. And one of his experiments gets used against him, killing a bunch of people in Syracuse, you know, a bunch of like innocent women and children, and he spends the whole season really upset and devastated about that. Like, my knowledge and my learning caused this, you know. So I liked that initially, how he was feeling, but then he spends the remainder of the season I feel like he's just in self-pity for the remainder of the season, and he's just wandering around aimlessly, and I found all that so boring, you guys. Like the one episode where he runs into that rebel nun or whatever she was, like I didn't care for that at all. And then the episode with the map maker, I mean, that was okay, but again, I feel like it just didn't really go anywhere, and it was kind of boring as well. So yeah, Leif, I think, had it worse this season, which is an absolute shame. It did. It honestly felt like the writers didn't know what to do with Leif. You know, they knew they needed to split him up from Harold because of everything going on with Harold. If Leif had been there with Harold, Leif would have been an easy means of, like, saving and protecting Harold, and Harold needed to get out of his own situation by his own means without any help or assistance from Leif, you know? So it's like, I get why they were separated again, but it just kind of didn't work for me. And then Freydis, at least Freydis' story was kind of evenly divided up, because half of the season she is in Jomsburg, and she gets herself a new romantic interest. We see that her son with Harold, he's now 7 years old. It's a cute little dynamic, and yeah, she's the leader of Jomsburg. But yeah, all hell breaks loose in Jomsburg when Magnus, Olaf's son, you know, who she previously, you know, Olaf, who she killed in the previous season. So yeah, Magnus is out for revenge now. So Magnus has set up like a whole plague. He's poisoned like their food supply. So I liked that whole chunk in Jomsburg with everybody just freaking dying left and right. And then they all realize, okay, we got to get out of here. And so she heads off and she reunites with her father, Eric the Red. And that was all really interesting. I don't think it was executed that great in some ways. I feel like a lot of things that happened with Eric the Red just escalated very, very just too quickly without much thought or depth to it. It's like they just want to turn him into a villain for the sake of turning him into a villain almost. But it was still fascinating in its own way. I just wish they could have spent more time on it, like it got out of Jomsburg maybe quicker than what they did. And then speaking of Magnus, I do think Magnus was one of the more interesting characters this season. Like he was a really great foil and a really great villain. I really enjoyed kind of what was going on with him because I definitely understood his motives pretty much. You know, Freydis killed Olaf at the end of last season and he's out for revenge and he wants to take back things that he thinks is rightfully his, and yeah, all the conflict that happens when we reach Kattegat near the end of the season. So yeah, at least Magnus, there was a lot of things going on with Magnus's story that was like unpredictable, that I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and that was thrilling and exciting at least. And like I already mentioned, everything going on with Emma and Canute and Godwin, all of that drama was probably my favorite stuff of the whole damn season. I'm not going to lie. Again, I love people just sitting around and talking, and political intrigue and political backstabbing. It was all wonderful. And yeah, we find out that Canute is dying. Yeah, guys, he's dying. He needs a successor, and he has sons all over the freaking place. So I loved when they do go back to Kattegat, and he's trying to figure out which son needs to go where. So of course all of the sons are vying for power, even the littlest one. I love the littlest boy, which is his son with Emma. I love all of them vying for power. And again though, even though I loved all of this stuff, when we get to the final ending moments of this season, because Canute has died, spoiler, Canute has died, and yeah, his one son just kind of comes right back in, the one that he said, hey, you're gonna be a regent to your littlest brother over in Denmark, but clearly he had no intention of being regent over in Denmark, so he comes right into England to try and take over. And you get the idea that Emma is going to make her power moves again and seduce this son of Canute, very much like she seduced Canute himself. So it just kind of ends very abruptly, you know? And I feel like that's how this whole season was. A lot of the ending was very abrupt, and there was like so much setup for like the future of where these characters are going and where the future is going. You know, especially everything with William the Conqueror, because we do get an episode where we get to meet William, the future William the Conqueror, yeah guys, as like a young man. So it's like they establish like the more interesting history that's about to transpire here in like another decade or so. So yeah, everything with this show, you know, the writers needed to focus on this show. You know, they needed to focus on this show. They needed to focus on the ending of this plot, the ending of these characters, but instead it's like they're trying to establish far more interesting things that are about to happen in like another decade or two with, you know, with the Norman invasion and all of that. And it's kind of a shame that they didn't conclude really their own story that they established in this particular show. And going back to King Canute really quickly, I had just such an emotional attachment and connection to him, because when he died, when he's laying in the bed and Emma's with him as he's dying, like, that brought me to tears. You know, I did have some tears for that moment, because I think out of all the characters this season and all the various plots, they did the best job of really getting into Canute and Emma's relationship, and yeah, his desire to put things right and try to get his sons where they all need to be, you know. I loved all that, and I had that emotional attachment to Canute, and it brought me a few little tears, you know, and I loved it. So overall, to conclude this video, the season was okay. It definitely was not perfect. It was okay. I left it feeling frustrated and definitely disappointed. I think there's just a lot in this season that was very boring, unfortunately. and I do think it was maybe a mistake splitting up Harold and Leif. Again, there was promises of good things going on in there occasionally, but I think a lot of it just wasn't executed in the way that they were hoping it would be executed. I don't know. Again, I'm very curious the thoughts and feelings of other fans of this show, because I feel like I might be in the minority that I didn't like it. I feel like other people probably enjoyed the season more than me. So I'm definitely curious. Please share with me how you felt about this final season. Did it feel like a final season to you? Because that's just it. It didn't feel like a final season to me whatsoever. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings, my very complex thoughts and feelings on Vikings of Valhalla Season 3, the final season. Let me know how you felt about this show down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.